Hello everyone, Adrienne from Alice Scraps Wonderland back again with another process video. This time I'll be doing another canvas, but this one's actually a gift for my sister for her baby nursery. I'm just starting out by putting down some modeling paste through a small stencil, and I'm just going to put it on different areas of the canvas. After the modeling paste dried, I just wet my canvas with a spritz of water, and I'm going to be using my finger to paint on impasto paints onto the canvas. I like how the water makes the impasto paint spread a little bit easier, and I enjoy using my fingers instead of a brush. It's just a lot of fun. And just keep adding paint and water as needed until your whole canvas is covered the way you want. Next, I'm adding a little bit of the lavender impasto paint to the canvas as well. And again, I'm just using the water to help spread the paint a little bit easier and to help it to blend better with the mint color that I already put on the canvas. I'm also adding color to the sides of my canvas as well. That's something that's not necessary, but I enjoy having the color extend to the edges of my canvas. Next, I'm taking some white gesso and I'm covering some molds that I created using some Prima molds and some hot glue. I cut this wolf out with my silhouette cameo, and I cut it out of craft card stock, and I cut 3 times and adhered those 3 layers together with some glue just to make it a little bit more sturdy and to give everything a cohesiveness and a plain base to paint on later. I'm adding some white gesso to this as well. Next, I'm taking some Tim Holtz Distress Microglaze to protect this fussy cut moon that I cut out from Prima's Moonchild collection. And this will protect it in some following steps. I'm just going to buff out the excess with a paper towel and use some distress ink to color the edges of the paper so that it's not white. And then This is the reason why I covered it with the Distress Micro Glaze. I'm taking Nuvo crystal drops in clear, I believe it's Morning Dew or something like that, and covering the whole piece. When you do this, smaller pieces like this could curl and it could cause cracking, which I was okay with. I wanted a bit of a distressed look, and I used that to my advantage later with another step after this was dried. But if you want to make sure that something like this doesn't curl as the drops dry on there, leave it on the whole paper first. Don't cut it out, and cover it with the drops and then cut it out when it's dry. Next, I'm adding a little bit of texture to the wolf cutout by putting some modeling paste through another stencil. To lessen the intensity of the color of the impasto paints and to also provide more texture, I'm applying some Ranger's texture paste in opaque crackle, and this will leave a nice white colored crackle paint over the top of my canvas. Next, I'm going to be adding some color to these pieces that I gessoed earlier. I'm just using a brush with a very rough bristle, and that will allow me to get into all the nooks and crannies and crevices of these really detailed molds. These molds I made with paper clay and dried earlier, and I just had them on hand and figured they'd be a good addition. So these I didn't gesso, I'm just painting impasto paint straight onto these since the paper clay was already white. And I'm also adding purple to the wolf. To give the embellishments or the molds on my canvas the same kind of washed out look, I'm applying a thin dry brush of white impasto paint, and I'm just using my hand to dab excess off of the paintbrush so that I have a little bit more control as to how much paint I'm putting onto the embellishments. For those of you that watch my channel, you'll know that I'm extremely visual and like to lay everything out onto my surface before I start gluing things down, just to make sure that it's how I like it. So that's what I'm doing right now. And you can see that I'm adding some paper flowers, and there's that little moon. You can see that it did crack, and I will add some additional pieces to that later to my advantage. I'm also adding in some little pieces from the Moonchild collection from Prima, as well as some other small embellishments. Once I'm happy with placement, I'm going to start gluing things down. But first, in order to help me pop this wolf up off of the background so that it can lay nicely over those molds, I'm just painting a small clothespin white on the sides. And once that dries, I'm going to glue it to the back of the wolf and then use that to glue to the canvas. I'm also giving this other embellishment a light wash of white impasto paint so that it matches some of the other elements on the canvas. Now that that clothespin has had a chance to dry, I'm just removing a few things so that I can take the wolf up off the canvas and glue that onto the back of the wolf. And I'm just going to set that aside and let that adhere and dry properly before I push it onto my canvas. Before I glue everything else down, I'm going to add a little bit to my embellishments in the way of some icing paste, just to add a bit of glimmer to my project. And I'm just taking my finger and just brushing over the top edges of my molded pieces so that the icing sits on the top part. Now that the heavy body gel on the back of that clothespin has had a chance to adhere to the wolf die cut, I'm going to start adhering things down to my canvas. Again, I'm just going to take some of that heavy body gel and put it on the back of the clothespin and press that onto the canvas. This will allow me to add all of my other elements underneath the wolf as well. You can see that in order to get the little card exactly where I wanted it in height, I just cut off a little bit on the bottom of it so that I could glue it down where I want. And I'm giving that a little bit of dimension as well, and adding some pop dot foam to the top half of it and some heavy body gel to the bottom so that it lays flat against the canvas underneath the wolf. And I'm just using something to push that down there. You can see that I'm continually arranging and rearranging things until I get things the way I like them before I glue all those elements down. Next, I'm taking some watered down impasto paint in the Snow White, and I'm just splattering all over my canvas and elements that I have glued down already. I'm also taking a little bit of this Heather Hills wax and adding some color back into some of these pieces just for a little bit more dimension and also some more shimmer. And again, you can see that I'm using my hand to wipe excess wax off before I apply it to the pieces. Sometimes I do things out of order or decide later I want to add something to a different element. So I'm just going back in with this icing paste and adding a little bit of it to some of the raised areas on the wolf. I also thought it might be kind of nice to make some of those paint splatters appear like stars, and so I'm just taking a very small brush and adding some of that icing paste onto the white dots, especially on this card. I'm kind of a planner when it comes to placement, but some things come organically to me, so hey, why not put some more paint splatters on there? I'm also adding some silver thread underneath some of the embellishments, and I'm just going back in with a little extra heavy body gel as the gel kind of already dried a bit on me before I got to this step. I'm also placing some of my metal embellishments on the canvas just to get them where I would like them before I glue them down. And to keep this moon from curling, I'm going to back it with a piece of white cardstock, and I'm just gluing it down with some glossy accents. And to cover that white edge of the paper, I'm going to add some Distress ink in Wilted Violet again to the edge. To play up the cracks to my advantage in the moon, I'm just adding in some Distress stain to those cracks, and then I wipe off the excess with a baby wipe or paper towel. I'm just using some foam pop dots to adhere the compass to the canvas, and then I'll be using some heavy body gel to adhere the Roman numeral 3 to the canvas. Next, I'm adding in some art stones using the soft gloss gel to adhere them to the canvas, and I'm just placing them in groupings where I think I might like them, or in areas where there isn't very much and I felt it needed a little texture. After I've placed those on the canvas and they've had a little bit of a chance to dry, I'm now going in with some watered down white impasto paint, and then I go in and add a little bit of color to them as well with the mint and lavender impasto paints. fussy cut this butterfly out from the Moonchild line, and I'm also disguising that white edge of the paper with some Tim Holtz Distress ink in Hickory Smoke. I'm also using pop dots to pop the little Moonchild saying that I also fussy cut from that same line to lay it onto the wolf. And then next I'll be gluing this butterfly down onto one of the petals of the flower, and I'm just using a pair of tweezers to help me press that into place. I decided to go in and add a little bit more of this silver thread just to give some more glimmer and dimension and texture to the canvas. And you can't go wrong with a little bit of extra bling, especially since this is going to be for my future niece. And I'm just using some additional glue dots to make sure that these have a really good adhesive backing and that they stick to the canvas and don't fall off. It's really dry here in Colorado, so adhesives have a tendency to shrivel up. I really hope that you enjoyed this project. I find that the canvas is playful and sweet, and I think that my future niece is going to love this when she gets older. I know my sister already loves this, so I'm so excited to see it up in her nursery eventually. For more inspirational projects like this, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you liked this project and process video as much as I did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. I'll see you next time.